Good morning, Digit fam, and welcome to the final episode of the Digit Daily Podcast. Our time has been too short, and I need to stop talking about this, but as the great man once said, don't be sad that it's over, be glad that it happened. That's the attitude I'm taking, and I hope it'll help you too. But we still have one more Digit Monthly to get through, so let's get to it. It is January 2020, and this is the month that was. CES came and went at the beginning of the month, and despite the fact that it was one of the best shows in recent memory, I'm kind of glad I wasn't there. It made covering it for the podcast easier, but that being said, I'll almost certainly be going next year whether I have a podcast or not. And CES brought us some cool stories. Sony's new car that wasn't really a car, Sherman's poop bots, which don't really exist, and folding laptops, which, well, okay, those are actually pretty sweet. And TCL showed off a 5G phone for under $500. All that is nice, but in February we have an avalanche of new phones coming, including the Mi Note 10, the Mi Note 10 Pro, the Poco X2, the Realme X50, the Oppo Reno 3 Pro, the Samsung Galaxy S20 series of phones, which may or may not include the Ultra, the Samsung Galaxy Razr, Z Flip, the Sony Xperia 2, or whatever number they decide to give it, the LG V60 ThinQ, the Vivo Apex 2020, and the Oppo Find X2. Finally, we'll get to see Motorola's first flagship since October of 2017, which, by the way, is the month that I started at Android Authority and Digit, and they're releasing their next flagship the month after I leave. I can't help but think I was responsible in some way. Sorry about that. But this onslaught of phones is coming from MWC, assuming MWC doesn't get canceled due to the coronavirus, which is up to 10,000 infections by the time you hear this. Oh, and another fun fact, the only Illinois infection of the coronavirus is less than 5 miles from my house. So who knows, we might have had to cancel this podcast anyway. MWC, or Mobile World Congress, is, as the name suggests, one of the biggest trade shows for mobile, and it's coming this February 24th through 27th in Barcelona. The sheer number of phones we'll see this month is staggering and easily competes with the onslaught of phones we got last September and October. What that means is that the mobile phone season is starting to heat up again, so it'll be fun to see manufacturers pushing even more boundaries than last year. How many 5G phones will we get? What new innovations will we see? Under-screen selfie cameras, maybe? Under-screen fingerprint sensors that don't suck? Nah, no, that last one's just crazy talk. But with all that we've seen this month, February looks to be even more interesting by far, not just from a phone perspective. Well, okay, yeah, from a phone perspective, but hey, I am who I am, right? Of course, the other big phone event that we'll see is Samsung's Unpacked event, which is always a show. Maybe we'll get the Samsung Galaxy Home finally. Yeah, I know, again, crazy talk. But Samsung always puts on an interesting show, whether it's in killer specs or overt sexism on stage. Either way, it'll be a hoot. So on that note, let's take a look back at the month of January in our Roundup! CES was arguably the most important event of the month, and from it we saw a number of interesting and fun concepts. Of course, you might want to take a look at the Verge's 84 of the biggest flops and fails in the past decade to put the stuff we saw at CES in perspective. It's remarkable how many new and innovative things we saw spectacularly crash and burn before ever making it, or sometimes after making it, to consumers' hands. And Google was responsible for a lot of them. It's fairly shocking how often one of the richest companies in the world threw away time and money on the Nexus Q, the Google Barge, and so many Google Graveyard residents it has its own zip code. It's actually kind of sad. The phones we did see at CES included two new phones from Samsung, the S10 Lite and the Note 10 Lite, both of which left out key features like, for example, US availability to make them serious contenders for my wallet. Add to that the fact that Samsung's next flagships are coming out just a hair over a month later, and just why? We also saw the OnePlus Concept One with its magic disappearing camera, which for some damn reason is going on a world tour. Look, I get it, OnePlus, you've got some extra cash, but maybe flying around the world and showing people a phone that may never see the light of day might do nothing more than give your accountants migraines. See the aforementioned 84 flops. Other stuff we saw out of CES included Ganfast chargers, GaN, or gallium nitride, powers a whole line of small and fast chargers, potentially replacing the brick-on-a-string chargers that come with laptops. We also got to look at Samsung's $1,000 Chromebook, which is probably the best $1,000 Chromebook you can buy if you want a $1,000 Chromebook, which you shouldn't. But if you do, get that one. But you shouldn't, so don't. We also got to look at some sweet 8K TVs from the likes of Samsung and LG, and later in the month, Gizmodo told us, yeah, don't buy those either. Actually, 8K TVs are kind of like the $1,000 Chromebooks of the TV world. They cost a buttload of money, and they're designed for content that doesn't really exist yet. And maybe in the future, there will be a series of compelling use cases for them, but for right now, their main function is basically just to show off that you have money to burn. Don't get me wrong, that's a valid function. But again, you'll give your accountant migraines, so just don't. Moving past CES, we got to look at the future of Apple, and it is indeed bright. Apple will be getting 5G, new MacBooks, a new iPad Pro, and USB-C charging ports on new iPhones courtesy of the EU. Also, it's the end of the month, so we got Apple's sales figures, and they were quite good, with 61% of its $91 billion with a B dollar revenue coming from iPhones, and the other 39% from privacy. That's actually not true. Wearables made up a good chunk of its earnings as well, including the just-released AirPods Pro, which are the first AirPods that don't suck. Meanwhile, on Microsoft's side, they made just a third of the money Apple did, but the Surface line of devices made up almost $2 billion by itself. I'm a big proponent of Surface devices, so that gives me happy feelings, and I bet it gives Microsoft, and Panos Panay in particular, very big grins indeed. On the darker side of things, we saw Jeff Bezos hacked by Saudi Arabia, resulting in the world's most expensive WhatsApp dick pic. The Doomsday Clock ticked down another 20 seconds to oblivion because we have a president that likes to threaten nuclear war with a tweet and thinks that climate change is a hoax. Oh, come on now, you know he's the reason the clock is ticking, and this is our last episode, so you know what? I can say it now. And speaking of horrible things happening right in front of us, Tinder implemented new safety measures geared towards women's safety, and that's not a horrible thing, but it is horrible that they were necessary in the first place. Good on you, Tinder. Coming up, we kind of already talked about them, but we have Samsung's Unpacked in just over a week, and MWC at the end of the month. And speaking of the end of the month, that's going to do it for this end of the month and this season of the Digit Daily. I just wanted to say thanks so much for the support I've been getting on the socials yesterday and today. It really means a lot to me to know that we've all been in this together. From the pilot episode on October 25th, 2018 to today, we've been truly a Digit fam. And Tristan is also part of that fam, so make sure you subscribe to the newsletter. And when you see a particularly interesting, fascinating, or frosty story, just imagine what I would have said about it, and we'll all smile together. Once again, and for the final time, I'm Adam Doud, Dead Technology on Twitter, and we'll talk again, well, somewhere else.